Within generations of sports, we see many instances of conflict for the sake of sport. This frequently takes the form of unsportsmanlike behavior, which is seen in all leagues of sport. These conflicting ideals stem from the concept of performing identity, which is the examination of how we reinforce, through regular habits, who we are or who we want to be, and more specifically, how we want other people to see us. We commit to conflicting behaviors in order to reinforce or defend these functions of identity. Unsportsmanlike behavior is an important part of sports, varying from youth, college, and professional sports. We will be analyzing the relationship between unsportsmanlike behavior and performing identity through different ages and levels of sport.
Unsportsmanlike behavior is common to see and connect with youth sports. This behavior in youth sports is a prevalent issue and a perception of negative behavior in young adolescents. This behavior stems from many factors that influence the youth and can then translate to their performance in sports. Youth mainly have outbursts in sports when they lose or if they mess up while participating. This type of behavior can range from trash talking, taunting, crying, or physical aggression.
Of kids just if they lose, that's the big one. The losing is such a difficult process. Having a conversation with anyone who's at high emotion, there's no reason with high emotion.
This behavior can stem from different environments. Unsportsmanlike behavior can have negative consequences for the athletes involved, such as decreased self-esteem and confidence, as well as a lack of enjoyment and motivation to participate in sports. In an article by Andrea Edicall and Joseph Mahoney, they explain the ecological systems theory, which was developed by psychologist Yuri Brofenbrenner, that explains how human development is influenced by different types of environmental systems.
The environment is not just about the kid and what they do with their environment, it's what the environment does to the kid as well. So kids at home having a great day, well, mom and dad have a really bad day at work, they come home and I'm not talking about anything abuse or anything, they're in pissy moods or they got in a fight, and so now that impacts the young kid, and then he's got to go to practice, and so I like to tell my students it's that emotional baggage that they're carrying. They come to practice and let's say they're a stellar athlete, but they're holding on to a lot and it's heavy on them, and if they slip up they might be more irritable to themselves, or teammates get onto them, so now they're more likely to lash out. I mean, all of that is not because of what happened at practice, and as coaches we have to remember that these kids are bringing things into our gym that we don't see. I think sometimes we got to remember that they're children and they're growing. As adults, we have this thing called the prefrontal cortex where we can balance our emotions. In adolescents, they're figuring that out. It's sometimes skill versus will. They might not have the skill to figure out why they're frustrated about losing or figure out why these things are happening. That's our role as coaches.
It's important for coaches to set clear expectations for their athletes and to model positive behavior themselves. The relationship between parents and children in sports is complex and influential to the development and performance of the child in sports. Parents can also help by encouraging their children to be respectful and sportsmanlike towards their opponent.
With teammates, I would say you see it more during the off season because of the fact that they're going against each other so much. When they're playing pickup against each other, meaning they're just playing 5-on-5 and they kind of make their own teams. If it gets really competitive, there's probably going to be a few words that are said. If somebody commits a hard foul by accident, or maybe it was on purpose, you never know, but there's probably going to be some words that are said. Opponent and teammate, I think when you see unsportsmanlike conduct, especially with your words, I think it has to do with either trying to get a mental edge, just trying to get into somebody's head to see if you can throw them off their game. Maybe it's a sense of pride that intrinsically you want to say, I'm better than you. And I think that's in us a little bit, in everybody to an extent. Some of us have a better realization and stay away from that because it can consume you and probably put you on maybe not the best of path.
We look at college sports and people are so excited about collegiate athletes, but I mean, they're teenagers. They're still in their adolescence. I can reflect back on days where someone dumped me, let's say, on a Friday, and I had a meet on Saturday. I'm totally distracted. My emotions are haywire, and I'm not locked in, and I'm sad, and like that obviously influences my demeanor, influences my drive to run. I mean, our immediate environment really impacts us beyond the house.
College athletes' identity often lies in their designated sport, and unsportsmanlike behavior can come out due to their ego and emotional attachment to the performance identity. With college athletes, Dr. Forrest Wimmer explains that sports are emotional, and it is this emotion that leads to players participating in unsportsmanlike conduct. He then states that college athletes are children and therefore behave irrationally in many aspects of sports. Though both Dr. Forrest and Dr. Nelson alluded to the fact that many unsportsmanlike behavior cannot be prevented fully, there are ways to minimize it. In order to address this issue in college sports, team members should spend time on and off the field or court with each other in positive environments. This will allow the team to bond and reduce the amount of in-team aggression. When it comes to unsportsmanlike conduct with other teams, it is important to have rules and regulations that penalize those who participate in this conduct. This will help reduce the number of negative interferences that occur throughout a game.
A professional athlete's whole identity is sports. It's how they make their living. It's their job. So when they do not perform well, unsportsmanlike behavior is common but can still be seen as uncalled for. There is no excuse for harming another player, coach, or staff member. This, unfortunately, still occurs in professional sports. There have been many studies conducted to try to explain and reduce this. In an article by Hilltop, the author states that sportsmanship is typically a reflection of the player and their character. It says a lot about a player if they are repeatedly showing unsportsmanlike behavior. The National Football League introduced the unsportsmanlike conduct rule so games can be carried on positively while setting a strong example for viewers and young athletes that are next to come. In 2016, the NFL strengthened its unsportsmanlike conduct rules to ensure the quality of the game. We felt like we needed the rule to make sure the players are held accountable to how we'd expect them to conduct themselves, says the NFL Competition Committee chairman. This is how the NFL is trying to minimize and reduce the effects of unsportsmanlike conduct. In the NBA, unsportsmanlike conduct is just as prevalent, but when it does happen, the conduct and punishment is usually much more severe than the NFL. The NBA is typically not as violent as the NFL, so when this kind of conduct occurs, the league tries its best to use the incident to mitigate future cases of misconduct and set an example of what not to do.
Everybody talked about it. Every show talked about it.
You violated the number one rule for any professional athlete, and that is no matter what is said, no matter what is thrown at you, you don't go into the stands.
The narrative had changed. It was all about us, the players.
Ron, Steve, J.O., it's their fault. They were being thugs. They were acting out of line.
Right, all of a sudden, my character is in question.
Since the Malice at the Palace incident, the NBA has cracked down on punishment for unsportsmanlike acts.
In this presentation, we have established that unsportsmanlike conduct is behavior that is rude, aggressive, or unfair, especially during a game. This behavior is not limited to one age group, but was present in all three categories we examined. Throughout our interviews, we gathered background, real-life examples, and information on unsportsmanlike conduct. These interviews revealed to us that in many cases, unsportsmanlike conduct is unavoidable but can be managed. There are many interesting relationships that experience the effects of unsportsmanlike conduct, such as within a team, on opposing teams, and with coaches and/or staff. These situations stem from the performing identity, where many players put their identity in sports. This concept is one we have analyzed in class and have learned that the high emotions involved in sports, along with performing identity, can lead to unsportsmanlike conduct.